What up, and welcome to the Found Her podcast. I am your host, Kelly Chaika, and I am so glad that you're here. With this podcast, I want to help support and encourage you on the journey to finding the best version of yourself. In the Found Her podcast, we're going to dive deeper into topics like dating, faith, fitness and nutrition, my story, and lessons that I've learned along the way. I hope you stick around as we find and become the best versions of ourselves. What up, and welcome back to another episode of the Found Her podcast. I am your host, Kelly Chaika, and I am so glad to be here. You guys, I have been slacking the last month or two on these podcast episodes. Life has just been hitting me left and right. I was sick a couple weeks ago, lost my voice. Nobody needed to hear me talking, but we're on the mend, and I am excited to be here and chatting with all of you today. I hope everyone had the best 4th of July ever, even though the weather was crazy. But I'm really happy to be back, and I have some exciting news to share today. And we're going to be talking about a topic or just some things that I've been working through lately when it comes to adulthood. I know on the journey to finding yourself, we go through a lot. And I think a lot of it comes from like being in your 20s. That's when you start going through it. But it's kind of the transition from like your 20s, early 20s into late 20s and like becoming an adult, all the things that you have to deal with and how overwhelming it can sometimes feel. So we're going to be talking about that today. This is an episode that I need. So I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you. I hope you find it helpful. I hope something resonates with you. But regardless, again, I'm so thankful that you're here, and let's just hop right into it. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was walking into new phases of life, because as exciting as it is to like go into a new phase of life, I feel like it can be so overwhelming and like really hard at the same time. Like for me, I know I've talked about this in past episodes. I always say that I love change, and I'm someone who always needs change. I get bored if everything's the same all the time. But I never really realized until lately how comfortable I was in my life the way that it was. Like I genuinely loved like waking up in the morning, having a slow morning routine, having my Bible time, reading a book, getting ready slowly, going to school. Goodness gracious, going to work. It's been years since I've been in school, because that's funny. Going to work, coming home, going to the gym, going to the sauna, coming back, making myself dinner, going to bed. Okay, it was like that was my routine, and I still love that routine, and I'm a creature of habit when it comes to that. But life sometimes just really shakes you up, and I never knew how hard it would be to transition from being so selfish with my time to not. And the thing that keeps like popping up in the back of my head, and I'm by no means saying that I can relate to this, I just feel like what I've been experiencing these last couple of months is probably similar on like a very low scale. But I keep thinking about motherhood and like the transition from like wanting to be a mom and like the desire of it to then becoming a mom, and how much a child like truly wrecks your life in like the best possible way, obviously, because you go from being like so selfish, knowing what's happening next, knowing how your day is going to go, to having a child that you like are learning how to take care of, that they are your full life, all of your time is consumed by them. And I'm assuming that's why it's so hard for mothers and they go through that postpartum afterwards. Again, not speaking from experience, but I feel like that is one of the biggest transitions that you go through in life. And so on a small scale, I'm relating to that in the sense of my life is changing a little bit, and it's been hard for me, and I'm like trying to hold on to like the peace and calmness of what my life was to like the chaos that it can be now. It's just wild. Like the same thing goes with singleness. Like for me, for example, I remember last year at this time, I was praying so hard for like a future husband, a boyfriend, just a man to come into my life that was like so great. And I was so fixated by that. And then afterwards, I just got so comfortable with my time. I stopped thinking about it. I was just like, you know what? I love my life. And now, like, as you start to date and like talk to people, you do have to give up so much of your time, and like your weekends are then consumed by somebody else. And like it is so hard to like transition. And I've been telling my friends lately, I'm just like, you guys, it's not that whoever I end up with is fighting with like another guy. That is not the case whatsoever. It will never be. But they're fighting with my time because I love my time so much. And I don't think anybody really talks about going from like being so independent and like selfish to being somebody that like can develop into a relationship or like develop into being a mom. Like I've just noticed that that has been so much more difficult for me, and it's not something that I thought was going to be. Like I thought me doing all the work and like working on myself and becoming independent was going to make me in a relationship that much easier. Um and it's kind of the opposite. Like I'm just like, woo, like I'm a little too independent and this is a little weird. Um but if anybody else has been single for like a long period of time, you can probably relate. But I talked to some of my other friends who have been in relationships and now they're single, or they're like starting to date, and they're just like, it's they prefer it because they've had a relationship for so much of their life, and they're like, I can't believe you love singleness that much. And I'm like, I know, and I probably shouldn't. So that is just like an interesting transition as well. The exciting news that I have though is I did buy a house this weekend, which is insane. Was not expecting it whatsoever. And so a lot of things are just happening in my life that I'm like, what is going on? All great things, but all like overwhelming as well. And for me, when it came to buying a house, I never really envisioned myself buying a house alone. Anytime I would talk to my family, I would be like, like I'll buy a house whenever I'm with somebody, because then we'll get, like, I'm so picky about what I want. And I had a really hard time with like not wanting a fixer upper and all of that. And so I always envisioned myself just waiting until I was with someone to buy a house. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, it would be kind of cool to own a house all by myself. And when I tell you this weekend was like the wildest whirlwind of my life, was not really looking heavily. This house came up out of nowhere. It had been on the market for like 7 hours. And I sent it to my realtor and I was like, what are the odds that we can get this like in my budget? The market's obviously crazy right now. God is way too good to me. And somehow it all worked out. The family that was selling the house was so kind, and like I wrote them a letter and everything just went through so perfectly. Obviously we haven't closed officially yet, but as far as like sign an offer, it's happening. So I'm just like kind of freaking out. And going through all of this and like having all of these big life changes, I have also noticed that I'm struggling. And you may feel the same way if you're like going through a different phase in your life right now and you feel like you just can't really catch up. Like, I just think blending all of those things together with someone who's such a, I've never really called myself a perfectionist, but I have very high expectations for myself. And if you're that same way where you like expect a lot out of yourself, I don't really expect a lot of other people necessarily, but I expect a lot of myself and the way that I envision my life going and how I want to perform and the way that I want to show up for myself, for other people, etc. When your life gets so chaotic, it's hard to deal with the fact that you might not be meeting your expectations. And that has been a little bit difficult for me. Like when it comes, I just feel like in adulthood, you start to juggle so much. And it's hard to find balance. And I just want you guys to know, if you're going through the same thing, you're not alone. Because when I first started like my fitness journey, for example, I was going ham for that. Like that was my number one priority. That was what I was most passionate about. So a lot of my time was devoted to that. But when you become someone who's multi-passionate or has a lot of dreams and goals and aspirations, it can be overwhelming because like you want to be the best at all of it. But then you also have to give yourself grace that there's only so many hours in a day and you can't be perfect at everything that you do. Like I want to succeed in my job, but I want to be at the peak of my health and fitness, and I'm not. I want to be a good like daughter, sister, friend, girlfriend, like all of the things that you could be. I want to be that, but it all takes time. And like the less time that you have and the more things that you have going on, the harder it is to be that. And I don't know. That's just what I'm going through. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure other people have felt this way before, and maybe you feel this way right now if you're listening. But I just think at the end of the day, we have to try to give ourselves grace. And I know that's easier said than done, but I don't know. I don't really have the answers. What I do know though is that we don't have to have it all figured out. And I know that we hear that a lot, and that becomes very like taboo because we hear it so much, or just cliche, whatever you want to call it. But you genuinely don't. Like the amount of times that I've talked to older people, like when I was a nurse, I used to talk to my like older patients all the time and ask them like advice in life, and they're like, just take it day by day, like you're never going to know. My dad is 60 years old and he's like, I still don't have it figured out, kiddo. Like you don't have to know exactly how your life's going to go. And I think that becomes the joy of life. Like isn't that what life is all about, to like go through different phases of like making mistakes, messing up, getting it right, changing your mind, trying a new relationship, moving away. Like the whole point of life is trial and error. And I think I listened to Matthew McConaughey, and he's like, you gotta like just start throwing things at the wall, and whatever sticks, sticks. Like you gotta try a lot of things in order to find the thing that you want for your life. And that's the whole point of finding yourself, is like figuring it out. Like we're all just here figuring it out. We don't need to put all this pressure on ourselves to have it all like discovered right now. And the other thing that I've noticed is the perfect life isn't real. And like no matter how much we are like shooting for this like perfect vision of what our life should be and how we should be the perfect mom, the perfect, and like your day should go so smoothly. Nobody's days go that way. And social media makes it seem like they do. But, and not to quote like the Barbie movie or use it for reference, but look at the Barbie movie. She is living in a Barbie dream house, fairy tale, but she's unsatisfied. And she's like, there's got to be something else out there. Like, even if your life was perfect and planned out for you each and every day, like you still would want more. And that's okay. So the point of life isn't to have a perfect life. It's to have a really beautiful, messy life, and to make mistakes and to build a testimony and like come out of it on the other side and learn from it and be able to help the generations after us. Like I just think so much of life, we put so much pressure on it, especially at the age that we're now, and like comparison. And we're constantly looking left and right and wondering, why is everything happening for them and it's not happening for me? And why do they get it and I don't? And it's like you have your own story. Like there is a path laid out for you. I genuinely have to tell myself this all the time, and I know I've preached about it before, but there is a path and there's a story for you, and nothing that you're doing is messing it up. Like it's just getting you that much closer, and enjoy the journey. Like just, I don't know. It's hard, but like we just have to try to attempt to find some form of balance. Like focus on the things in that moment that lights you up. Focus on the things that like bring you joy, and just take it literally one day at a time. Stop looking at your friends and what they're doing. Like stop being so hard on yourself. The one thing I do want to talk about is just speak life over yourself. Like stop being so negative. I've had this journey before, and I know I've talked about my testimony, but back when I was in like high school and college, I was so negative. Even like a couple of years ago, I was still pretty negative, and sometimes I still have my days. Like it's okay to be like, wow, life sucks right now and want something else. But try as hard as you can to speak life over yourself, because when I was a negative Nancy, like shitting on other people, shitting on myself, saying nothing works out for me, what came to me? More negativity. And that's all that you're breeding into your life. Literally, it says in the Bible, I'm pretty sure I wrote it down, Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Your mouth has the power of life or death. So are you going to choose to speak life over yourself and believe that good things are coming despite the chaos? Or are you going to choose to be negative and say, oh, I wish that I had this, or oh, this sucks because like nothing goes right for me, or what? Like, I've been there and it's a shitty feeling to feel that way and be like, oh, nothing's going for me. But when I tell you, the more that you turn it around and focus on yourself, like genuinely dive into just getting to know yourself so much. And it can be lonely. I mean, if you're in a relationship or dating somebody or like married, you can still do it. But there is a quote out there that says, what is it? It talks about being lonely or like finding yourself. Oh, finding yourself can be a lonely road, but it's the most rewarding. So, regardless, it's gonna be difficult, and there's gonna be other people around you that make you feel like you're behind, but you're not. Like, in whose world are you behind? Nobody's. They might be struggling with somebody else. Like, I've talked about this before, but just try as hard as you can to speak life over yourself. If you're in a situation where you're like feeling like shit, it's okay to mope around, but flip it around. Be like, you know what? What's the positive in this situation? Like, I'm grateful that I have a house. Will I have a tighter budget? 110%. But am I grateful? Yes. Like, choose to focus on the positives. If you're single and you're like sad about it, be like, focus on the fact that you have so much time. Like, when I tell you, I love my alone time. Like, I love it so much, it's probably psychotic. Like, people listening to this are probably like, you have issues, because I loved it so much and I still love it so much that when I lose that, I'm going to have a really hard time, because I don't know. It's just, you got to appreciate the season that you're in, because the minute it passes you by, you're going to be like, wow, that was so good. And I didn't even appreciate it. Um, but honestly, this is a long rant and this is probably helping me a lot more than it's helping you, but I hope it does. Um, but I just want to try to encourage you in the fact that if you're feeling like your life is stagnant, or if you're in a season like I am where it is so chaotic right now and you don't know what's about to happen and you're a little nervous, like, regardless, God's got it and we know that. And just try to find peace in the fact that, like, the joy of life is all of the change and like all of the chaos. And if you're a new mom and you're like, I've talked to so many of my friends who have become a new mom lately, and they're like, it is crazy. It's so crazy. It's so lonely. Like, you're like, what is my life now? I just don't get it. Like, there are so many seasons like that we go through in life. And if you talk to older people, they're like, just appreciate it. Like, and don't be so hard on yourself. I am learning that, like I'm saying, like, I want to be the best at everything. Like, with this podcast, I have so many high hopes for it, and I want it to bless as many people as possible, and I want God to be able to speak through me and speak life over people. But it's also a commitment, and same thing with the gym. I want to be like top of my game, but sometimes you can't be. And I don't know, like, whatever you're going for in life right now, don't forget to appreciate like the season that you're in, and don't keep wishing for like the next step, because you might just miss what's happening right now. Um and I know that's probably sounding so cliche, but it's just something that has been like on my heart a lot lately. And just, I'm assuming other people might be dealing with this, but summer can be hard. Summer is like crazy chaos, fun, busy, all of the things. And juggling adulthood in general is hard. Don't beat yourself up. Like, go on TikTok, for example, and look up like 20-year-old budgets, and people will tell you they have like $5 in their savings account, and it will make you feel really great about yourself. So we're all in different phases. Like, we're going to be okay. We're going to make it. You don't have to be a perfectionist. That is not why we're here. We are here to make mistakes, to grow, change, and evolve. And moral of the story is, whatever season you're in, like, make the most of it, appreciate it, and just, yeah, just know that you're not alone in whatever phase of life that you're going through. Adulting is hard. Budgeting is hard. Finding a job you love is hard. Like, it's all hard, but it's all so worth it. And like, the journey is the best part. And like, a year from now, we're all going to be looking back like, wow, that was a crazy, amazing season. And look at what came from it. And we're all going to rise up from it. So I appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. I love you all so much as always. Please, 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 if there's ever an episode or like a topic that you're struggling with that you'd like to hear me talk about, or you would just like some advice on, feel free to shoot me a message on my Instagram or the Found Her Instagram, either one. Or I don't know, leave a review. I don't think that's how you're gonna tell me what episode you want, but either way, reach out to me. I might try to do a Q&A episode if there is like a lot of things that people want talked about, but regardless, I appreciate you all so much, and we're in it together. Peace and love. Bye-bye.